Hey guys, so in this video I'm just going to show you market structure. So essentially what you need to understand is that in order to have a higher high, you must have a higher low. In order to have a lower low, you must have a lower high. And you always use the bodies of the candles when you're drawing structure. So I'll show that to you on the chart, but first I just want to explain to you the difference in between the time frames and understanding where you are in the move. So essentially what you have on the higher time frame is on the monthly time frame you have arrived at a potential higher high, right? So where you want to buy at is the higher low, right? Which is basically a pullback into the previous structure point, which is the previous, resistance, broken turn, support, right? That's essentially where you want to be buying at, right? So on the lower time frames though, however, it's going to look like a deeper pullback, right? So on the weekly time frame, it's going to look more significant. On the daily, it's going to look more significant, and on the 4 hour, it's going to look more significant. But you have to always keep in mind where you are in the move in terms of the higher time frames. So I'll give you an example, right? So in order for the monthly to have this pullback to go to a potential higher new higher low, in order to pull, to continue to move up, the weekly is going to have a pullback, right? Now the pullback could potentially look as if it is a bearish shifting bearish, right? So essentially the weekly will shift bearish, right, in order to have a pullback, and then the daily will shift from bearish as well to have that pullback, right? And then the 4 hour is going to shift from bearish to bullish, because in order for the daily to create a lower high, the 4 hour needs to shift from bearish to bullish, right? So it's very, 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 very simple. Essentially, what you're doing is you're waiting for price to arrive at potential higher lows, or if we're selling, lower highs, right? So how it looks like on the time frames is very, very different. So you need to be mindful of where you are in the market, right? So where you are in terms of the overall direction of and flow of price, right? So if you're here on all these time frames, right, you can't essentially buy because you're at the top of the market, right? So you need to wait for price to pull back into the monthly or the weekly or the daily area, and they're all pretty much the same on the same time frame. And I'll show you that as an example. But what I basically am trying to explain and make simple for you guys is that in order for the monthly to have a pullback, the weekly is going to go bearish, right? Because it has to have that pullback. So you can't be confused if if you're thinking that, okay, now the trend is bearish. That's not really true, because you need to look at the bigger picture, right? Because the bigger picture is it's a pullback on the monthly, right? So same thing goes for the daily. So if you're thinking that price is creating a downtrend, that's not really true at all. What's happening is it's pulling back to the monthly potential higher low area. So it'll look like a downtrend, right, on the daily. And the same thing goes for the 4 hour. 4 hour will go from downtrend to uptrend to downtrend to uptrend until it gets to that area, because in order for the daily to create a lower high, the 4 hour has to go bullish in order to create it. It just has to happen, right? So same thing goes for the daily. In order for the weekly to create a lower high, the daily has to shift bullish now as well. So I'm going to show you basically what that looks like on the chart. But it's very, very simple, just understanding where you are in the flow of the market. So essentially this is basically what it looks like on all time frames, right? So in order for you to buy at a higher low, you need to wait for these areas to arrive at that level, essentially, right? And in order to arrive there, it's going to look like, a downtrend and then an uptrend and then a downtrend depending on what time frame you're looking at, right? So now in terms of structure is very, very simple. So I'm just going to show you some examples. So let me just draw some structure for you guys. It may look all choppy or whatever like this, right? So how you draw a structure and identify market structure is essentially what the easiest way to do it is I would draw two lines, right? So let me just use this one, it's a little bit easier. So let's just say we have this, and then we have this, right? So let's just call this our higher high. And this is our higher low, right? So the moment a candle body closes above this level, that becomes the new higher high, right? So give you an example. So let me just move this. So now this becomes the new higher high, right? And then where would be the new lower higher low? So if this is the new higher high, would you keep it here, or would it move here or here, right? So the easiest way to figure that out is you start from the new higher high and you just work your way back until you get a turn, and then it would move to this level. It's the easiest way to figure out where the higher low is. So then you go ahead and move that there, right? So let me just delete this. Right? And then same thing, you would move it now up to here. And then now, where would the new higher low go? Again, if you don't know, you just draw it back until it has a turn. And then that's where it would go, right? Okay. And then now, we have the new higher high and we have the new higher low, right? So then, what is this point here, right? What is this? What is this? What is this? What is this? It is it a higher low? Is it a lower high? It's nothing. It's just market structure, right? Because you got to remember, in order to have a higher high, you need to have a higher low, right? And in order to have a lower low, you need to have a lower high. Now this is all in between the higher high and the higher low, right? So it's just market structure. This is just nothing. It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing, right? So now what happens is price broke out, and now this becomes this becomes the new higher high, right? And then where does the higher low go? Well, again, you just draw it back until you have the first turn, and then that's where the new higher low would go, right? So I'm going to do another example, see if you guys can figure this out. So let's just say okay. So again, we'll start from here. This is the higher high, right? And then this is the higher low. And then as soon as you have a body close above, that turns into the new higher high, right? So this would go here, right? And then where would the higher low go, right? Again, if you don't know, you just circle it back until you have the first turn from the higher high, right? So that would go here. And then now price has broken out of it again. So again, price would shift here. And then where would the next higher low go? It would go here. And then what is this here? Is it a lower high? Is it a lower low? It is nothing. It's nothing. It's just market structure, right? Because what could happen here is price could continue to push down or it could push up, right? So that essentially is nothing. It's just market structure, right? So we just remove this. So that's how you identify market structure, right? So now if we go to the charts, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So just some recent examples, right? So just always be mindful of this, where you are in the move, right? So let me just delete this. Oops. Right, so it's important to know that in order to have a higher high, you must have a higher low. In order to have a lower low, you must have a lower high. And you always use the bodies. So you just always want to be mindful of where you are in the move, right? So I'll show you some examples of that, right? So let me just start on the weekly time frame. Let me just remove all this. Right, so I'm just going to use some past data, right? So so just start from here, right? So I'm just going to start here so you can see what I'm talking about. Right, so this is on the weekly time frame, right? So you have a higher high, and you have the higher low, right? The moment that you body close above this level, it becomes the new higher high, right? So now we're just going to follow price and just see what happens, right? So following price, following price, following price. Now this is the new higher high, right? Yep. And then where would the higher low go? Right? It would stay the same, right? It wouldn't go here because price never created a higher high yet, right? So you can't have a higher high without a higher low, right? So price would stay there, right? So this is the new higher high, and then this is the new higher low, or the same higher low, right? So let's remove that. So in order for price to go up, right, price needs to have a pullback. So I'll show that to you in the next area. So anyway, price ends up breaking above this level, stopping here. So this becomes the new higher high. Now where would the next higher low go? It would go right here. Right? We're just paying attention to this area right here, right? In this section. So now what has to happen is price needs to create a pullback in order to continue to go higher, right? And this is the level that we're looking for it to go at, right? It's in between these zones. As I look at the line chart, right? I remember telling you that, sharing that with you guys, right? So you're waiting for the pullback, right? So if I go ahead and take a look here, just a second, on the daily time frame, what that will look like, right? So essentially, I'll just try to mark this area. So let's go to the daily and let's see what that pullback looks like, right, on the daily. So if I go to the daily, what happens is price shifts bearish, right? So I'll give you an example. Let's say the higher high, higher low, higher high, and then this right here is where price shifted bearish, right? So as soon as it body closed below this, it shifts bearish, right? Because it has to have the pullback, right? So now price has shift bearish. So let me just delete this and I'll show you real quick. So let me draw this. These are the weekly levels, right? So I just want to remove that for a second. So let me just draw this, right? So this is the higher high. Right? And then if you get confused, you just kind of work your way back, right? Where's the next lower low, right? So when there's multiple points, you want to just pick structure that looks the most obvious. Like this right here, I don't consider that structure. I just consider that one move. So I wouldn't mark that as structure personally. I would just mark it like this. Like so, I'll just show you guys an example. how I see the structure from this area, right? So for me, this is all I see. Right? So this is essentially what I'm looking at. And this is what the structure looks like to me, right? So that's how I would draw the structure, right? So if we take it from this area, I'll just show you guys what I'm talking about, right? So this is the higher high, right? And then you have the higher low here, right? Just show you guys an example how it shifts, right? As soon as you body close above that level, meaning above this level, that becomes the new higher high, right? So again, just move this up here, right? So this is the new higher high, and then the higher low still stays the same, right? I'm sorry, I messed up, guys. My bad. This is the higher low. Sorry about that. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. So that is the higher low, right? Sorry. And then price breaks above this with the body closed. So now this becomes the higher high, and then this moves up all the way here now, right? So this becomes the new higher low, right? Now this is nothing, right? This is just structure. It is absolutely nothing, right? You got to understand where you are in the flow, right? So, and where you are in terms of structure, right? So this is nothing. So as soon as price closes a body above here, as soon as price closes above this or below this, we're bearish or bullish. So this goes here, right? And then now this is where I would put this here, right? Because as I mentioned to you, this to me it seems like a better structure point, right? And then now price closed above here. This becomes the new higher high, and then this becomes a new higher low, right? And then all of this in here is nothing, right? It's nothing. It's just structure. It's not anything. It's not a higher high, a lower low, lower low, lower high, whatever. It's nothing, right? So as soon as price closes below here, now this shifts, right? This shifts to a lower low, right? And we can't have a lower low without a lower high, right? So then this comes down to this level here, right? And now this becomes the lower high, right? Simple stuff, right? And then price obviously came into this area until it broke out, right? So, and this was the area we were looking to buy in, right? So this is the area you would be looking to buy in. If I go back to the weekly, to that area, right? That specific area is the potential higher low, right? That was the potential higher low. So you see how the daily essentially had to go bearish in order for price to go bullish on the weekly, right? So in order for the weekly to have a pullback, daily has to go bearish. Like that's just how it works, right? So I hope that makes sense. Pretty simple stuff. So it's just basically being mindful of structure and how structure looks and where you are in the move, right? So I'll give you an example of this area as well, right? So I'm just going to draw this. Just say higher high. This is a higher high, right? I'll give you another example. I mostly use the weekly now. You can use either one you want, but just going to show you how this works. This is the higher low, right? So why is that? Why is it the higher high? Why is that the higher low? Because this was the previous lower high, and then price shifted, right? You see that shift? See the shift of structure? Very simple, very clear, right? Okay, so now as I mentioned to you guys, as soon as price body closes above, that becomes the new higher high, right? So what did price do? Price body closed here, right? And I always draw it to the bodies, right? So if you go to line chart, I'm always drawing the higher highs and the higher lows to the bodies of structure. Now this becomes the new higher low, right? And then now this is where people get confused, right? So you can see that prices, it looks like it's creating a downtrend, right? But that's not true. Price is actually still bullish, right? Because it's still in this area, right? It's still in between the higher high and the higher low. So everything here is just market structure, right? It's nothing. It's just market structure. It's absolutely nothing, right? So but obviously how we buy and how we sell are from potential higher lows, new higher lows, and new lower highs, right? So the new potential area is always going to be around the previous structure point, right? And if you go to the line chart, it's what I always tell you guys, right? Essentially, it's between this area right here, right? This is where you're essentially looking to buy from. You're waiting for price to pull back to that area in order for you to buy, right? Because that's creating the new potential higher low in order to go high, right? So that's essentially what happened, right? So price ended up pulling back and then flew, right? So that's obviously how that looks on the daily time frame. I'll show you what it looks like, right? So in order for this to pull back, daily is obviously going to go bearish, right? So you can see daily ended up going bearish, right? So people could, you could have gotten mistaken in thinking that price is in a downtrend, but that's not what price is actually doing. Price is actually pulling back, and it's probably most likely a weekly retracement, right? Yeah. So the weekly is essentially what had to go bearish, right? So weekly ended up creating a pullback. Monthly created a pullback, which ended up causing the weekly to go bearish in order to have that pullback, and then daily went bearish, right? So if you're looking to buy at a potential higher low or lower high area, you basically need to, I'm just going to remark this, wait for price to get to a potential area of interest, which is essentially the previous structure point most of the time, right? Then once price gets there, you wait for the daily and the 4 hour to turn from bearish to bullish, right? That's basically all you're doing, is you're waiting for price to go from bearish to bullish once price gets to that area, right? So I'll give you guys an example, right? So let's just use this, this is the structure in between here, right? So, and this is the key area we're looking to buy from, right? Basically. So just using structure, not entries and all that other stuff. I'm just trying to show you how it works in terms of structure, right? So I'm going to use this. This I would consider a pullback, right? So this is just going to be my new higher high. Just going to show you guys higher high. And then I would consider this as the higher low. I just want to show you the shift of structure. Body closed above, that becomes the new higher high. This becomes the new higher low. Now price body closed below it, right? So then what happens is that this becomes the new lower low, right? So this is the new lower low. And this is the new lower high, right? And then as soon as price body closes below it, again, what happens? This becomes the new lower low. Now the new lower high will go here, right? Yep, that's still correct. Now as soon as price body closes above this, it changes direction, right? So now, as soon as the body closed above it, now what happens is this became the higher high, right? So this is the higher high. Right? And then now the lower low the lower low becomes the higher low, right? Okay. Now as soon as price body closes above it, again what happens? This goes here. Right? And then now the new higher low is here, right? And then price creates a pullback, usually at the previous structure point in order to go high, right? That's basically how structure works, right? You just mark them from the bodies, and it has to be clear, right? Like, I'll give you an example of what's not structure. Like, okay, so this could be considered structure. This right here is not structure. I wouldn't consider this a pullback. I would just consider that market structure, right? So you have to be able to identify it. Just go back and take a look. Like this here is absolutely nothing, right? So structure for me, what I see is this, right? This is what I see. And this could be potential structure. It's kind of in the middle. But it's better than, obviously, this. This I don't consider structure at all. To me, that's nothing, right? This is structure, and then price goes here, and then this is structure to me, This is structure. This is structure, right? So you just gotta be like, it has to be obvious, right? It has to kind of have like a turning point, right? It has to have like a quick turn, right? Like a quick turn, right? Like a quick turn. That's how you draw structure, like from those quick turns, right? Here, like, there's no quick turn, right? It just kind of like paused, right? It just went. It's not like a quick turn, right? So I wouldn't count that. So if you go back, just kind of get familiar with like how structure moves, right? So, I mean, how to draw structure and how it all works, right? So going back here, like I would count this. I would not count this. So the next point would be here. And then I would go up here. I would count this. 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 I would count this, this. Like this is all structure, right? So it may seem choppy to you, but it's actually all structure, right? Now, in this area right here, like I would count this. I would count this. I would count this. I would count this. I would not count this right here, this stuff right here, because it's just choppy nonsense. So, right, I would not be counting that. So I would. This is how I would draw my structure. Right, and then this would be basically my structure. That's how I would draw structure, right? And then up here would be, that's how I would draw structure. Like once you start to notice it, it becomes more and more clear, right? How you draw structure. Like here, I would draw it like this, right? Like take a look here, right? So like I would draw this, right? You can see where I'm not counting these little like pauses. I guess like I don't know what else you want me to call them. Like I'm not counting this as structure. Those are just like pauses. So it has to be like, you know, like an obvious turning point, right? It has to be obvious. Like look at the difference between this pullback and like this, right? It's just a pause, right? There's the U-turn, right? It's like and this is just like a pause, right? Yeah, so I hope that makes sense. You always just have to identify where you are in terms of direction and price, right? So if I take a look here on gold, just as an example, right? This was the higher high. Let's just do this on gold, right? And this was the higher low. I would count this. This is on the weekly, right? Yeah. Now, as soon as price body closes above it, this becomes the new higher high, and then this becomes the new higher low, right? Now, as soon as price closes above it or below it, that's when the market shifts, right? So now this would be here. Now this becomes the new lower low, right? So this is the new lower low. And then this just changes to the new lower high, right? So technically the weekly is bearish, right? But in order for price to, like if price was to do this, right, and then it broke here, if it was going to come here, create a new potential lower high in order to go down, then what has to happen is that the daily needs to go from bearish to bullish, right? So basically what ended up happening is exactly that, right? So I'm just going to draw this for you guys. Oops, sorry. Lower high. So this is the lower high. And then this is the lower low. Like this still stays the same, right? So, but I want to use this here, so. Lower. All right, let me just delete this one for a second. All right, so this is the lower low. Right? So price ended up becoming bearish, right? So price became bearish as soon as the body closed below this level right here, right? So if you're wondering how it shifted from bearish, I'll just show you real quick. So let's just call this the higher high at this moment in time, because that's what it was. This was the higher high. This was the higher low. Right? And then as soon as price body closes above it, this becomes the new higher high. This becomes the new higher low. Price body closed above it. Again, just keep moving. Price created a new higher high. Personally, this would be where I would keep the higher low. I wouldn't move it because this I don't count it. To me, it's just a pause. So personally, I wouldn't put it. I wouldn't move it. I would keep it there. So as soon as price body closed below this became the new lower low and a shift of structure, right? So now price is confirmed bearish, basically, right? And then this would change to a lower high instead of a higher high, right? And then basically what happened is price just, everything in between here is just a potential lower high to create a new lower low, right? So it's just market structure, right? So as soon as price body closes below it, that's when it shifts, right? So price body closed below, this becomes a new lower low, right? And then I would move the new lower high to here, right? And then if I just move this here, right? I like to get as super accurate as I possibly can, right? So this was the new lower low, right? And then this was the new lower high, right? And then price body closed below here, so this becomes the new lower low, right? Personally, I would keep the lower high the same, and then as soon as price closed above this level, this became the new higher high, right? And then this changed into a higher low, and then price body closed below it again, so this now becomes this now shifts again to the lower low, right? And then this becomes lower high, right? And then now price needs to come in here and create a pullback in order to create a new lower low, right? So everything in between here, in between this zone, is just market structure and a potential new higher, lower high, right? So now what we see is price body closed above this level. So now this becomes the new higher high, right? And then this, let's see, what would I count this? I would count this here. I would count this personally, just because it's a little bit more in an obvious area for me. So, and this would become the higher low, right? So higher low. So how you can, what we can basically tell is that the weekly is bearish, but the daily is bullish, right? And the reason for that is because the weekly had to have a pullback in order to create a new potential a new potential lower high to put in a new lower low if it wants to continue to go down, right? So that's basically what ended up happening, is that the daily ended up going bullish in order for price to create a potential lower high on the weekly time frame, right? So now essentially what we're waiting for is the shift of structure on the daily to go bearish, right? As well as the 4-hour time frame. So I hope that makes sense. This applies to, obviously monthly, weekly, daily, 4-hour, and so on and so forth. It's just how you kind of read structure. So I hope that makes sense. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, just kind of go back through the charts and you can backtest this stuff. Thanks.